Me trying not to kill myself at Spa. It is Spa week, one of the most brutal weeks and busiest weeks on the schedule. The track looks like an Uzi. There it is, so you can see it. And we're going to go ahead and kind of walk through most of my qualifying lap, my second qualifying lap, braking at the 100 for turn 1. You want to take a slightly late apex, but still be really tight on the inside. There's a lot of camber, and it'll pull you around and allow you to carry a lot more speed through there than you would think. Previous lap was a 2:20, which is good enough for P3 at the moment. Up Eau Rouge and Radion, flat out. You want to cut to the left, cut back to the right, and you should kind of be turning back to the left before you make that final apex at the top of the hill. Braking just before the curb for Lacombe. Gonna eat a lot of this curb on the right side to aim for a late apex. Don't want to open up this corner too much because we need to compromise it so we have a better run into the final bit of Lacombe right there, which it leads onto a very small straight. Eventually to Rivage, braking again right before the curbing and double apexing this one. Probably could have gone a little bit deeper there and honestly carried more speed all of the way through there. Braking before you hit the curbing on the right side, completely whiffing that apex, which is my worst corner by far, and you'll see it throughout this video that I struggled through there. The final little set of S's here, hooking your tire onto that curbing on the left, and it pulls you around, helps you make this corner, braking once again right before the curbing, riding onto it, and trying to avoid that inside curb. I do, at least, because it tends to throw you out, and I prefer to just have a smooth run all the way through. This is corner 16. If you do end up getting unsettled through there, the weight can be very difficult to get settled again, and it's a very high speed. The final chicane, really just want to carry as much speed as possible. There's a couple of different ways you can take it. Some people stay in second gear. I prefer to stay in first. Coming across the line for a 2:19.87, which actually keeps us in P3, so everybody kind of improved their second lap, and we remain in P3. Gabriel starting behind us, car number 2, going to be a huge player in this race as it progresses, and we'll get to see all of it. I'll walk you through it. Lap number 1, huge start, very uncharacteristic for us. We get a massive launch, or was it P2 getting a bad launch? Probably that, because here comes P5, jumping P4, and eventually P2 up the inside. Very aggressive dive, but well done. The space was there. We're just about 3 wide through the source. I'm on the outside, which should allow me a better run. So car number 5, who started in P5, is going to kind of have to settle behind us, and he ends up going side by side with Gabriel, car number 2, the one I was talking about, into Eau Rouge for the first lap. This is huge for me because there's no way they carry enough speed. They end up making netcode contact. Gabriel gets sent across the top of Radion. He's going to have a slowdown. Everybody has to kind of compromise their speed there to avoid running into each other, and Eduardo is looking around the outside of Gabriel, who I suppose didn't get a slowdown somehow, or maybe they're going to serve it. Perhaps it may just fall away because they're probably going to lose a lot of time going 2 by 2 into Lacombe. Gap already building between myself and P3. Gabriel pushing deep. Good stuff to him and Eduardo for surviving that. Chaos is breaking out behind. This black and red car finds himself in the wall, and the car who started in P2 is in the wall at the end of Lacombe as well. We're going to try and break this down somewhat, show you some different angles. The car who started in P2 is able to hold the inside into the beginning here, but he ends up kind of getting caught with Eduardo, who spins his car and gets straightened out by knocking that guy into the wall. So Eduardo is able to survive. The orange car dies, and as that was happening, just a few cars behind them, that black and red car is going to kind of slow down to try and navigate the situation, and just ends up being spun around by car number 7, who was behind him. We were, I would say, the biggest winner out of all of that, as multiple cars have died. We have a pretty big gap to Gabriel, which should grow because I think he is actually serving that slowdown still. So it ends up settling around 2.2 seconds, 2.3 seconds, which is a really big gap, and one that I should be able to manage, especially with the fact that I have slipstream from Rafael, the car directly ahead of me, who put it on pole, should be really fast, should be able to tow me around. It would take a lot of pace from Gabriel and a few mistakes from myself if I were going to drop a gap this big. although already it is the first lap, so I'm taking it a bit reserved on cold tires. I find that if I do spin, it is typically on the first lap, so I'm going to drop a couple of tenths through corners 12 all of the way to 16, which is where we are right now, and Gabriel is actually now a similar gap behind, but the car ahead is beginning to pull away, so it's very important that I get a good run through the source here on lap 2, which I do, not to mention he went pretty deep there, so we're firmly in slip. Gabriel is still out of slip, I would say 1.4-ish seconds, 1.5 is where the slip really ends up helping you, and it's a fairly long race. Spa's a very long track, about 2.5 minutes for one lap, and it's 11 laps. We're on lap 2, so what is that? 8 more laps to go? 9 laps? 10 laps, including this one? It's still a pretty long way. Into La Source, and I think I was still being fairly reserved here, actually apexing a bit early, I think, in that first apex of La Source, which kind of throws off my line, so I overslow a bit. Gabriel behind makes up some good time, gains about a tenth through there, but my weakest corner, No Name, we're going through Rivage currently, heading towards No Name, which was just this entire week, I could not consistently hit this corner. It wasn't a bad run there, but you'll see Gabriel behind gaining another tenth as he, plain and simply put, he was just faster, especially through this corner, and we'll take a look at his onboard just to see how cleanly he hooked that up, getting the tire just perfectly in the dirt, which means he had a really good entry, truly, because your exit is just a consequence of your entry. You like that little philosophical moment? That's actually a quote from Sueyo Alameda, I don't know. He has a book called The Racing Handbook, and that quote is from it. Now, the gap has not changed at all, which is a bit concerning, actually, because Gabriel has no slip behind. So if he's able to maintain this exact gap, it means that he has the pace of the leader. Meanwhile, I am still about a second behind the leader, which means that even with slip, I'm struggling a bit here. Gabriel and the leader both running 19.96s, very similar pace between them. I'm going to completely miss the first apex of Puan there, and that has some big consequences most of the time. However, right now it seems that Gabriel didn't get a good run either, so we just lose a tenth to the leader, which is fine. This could be bad, as through corner 12 we go very, very deep. Here's an outside view of just how deep we went, and view from the leader's tail, which is going to lose us not only a tenth to the leader, but as we go through gravel with the narrow line, we're going to understeer, lose time to Gabriel as well, another tenth or so there, and we are now in a position where we are actually going to be struggling for slip from Rafal. We are still within slip. Our advantage is pretty minute compared to Gabriel at this point, so I'm going to have to work a little bit extra hard, also hope that maybe Gabriel has a moment or two to pull him away from me, but this is one of those moments where it's a defining moment of the race, I would say. Through Blanchimont, gonna actually make that corner. I typically get an off track there, so pretty happy to have made that, as you rack up off tracks over the course of the race, and then if you ever end up getting into a battle, it sucks when you're like one contact away from a drive-through. And we're still in slip. The situation is not that bad. It just takes us not making any mistakes right now. By the time lap number 7 comes around, Gabriel has been putting in some really good laps. 19.6, 19.7, 19.5 were his last 3. Meanwhile, on board with me as we begin lap number 8, 19.7, 19.6, 19.6. So a bit slower than Gabriel by about a couple of tenths. That gap hasn't really shifted much behind us, but we have slowly crawled our way back towards Rafal by a couple of tenths. We are starting to get back into that range, however, where the slipstream should be helping to pull us further away from Gabriel, and our lap times should fall a little bit. You can see that we've already pulled a tenth up Eau Rouge and Radillon, and we may get another one before we enter into Lacombe at the end of the straight, and we actually do. Now, I tend to overbrake when I'm following somebody into the comb to try and make up for the slipstream, which is a really bad habit, because you can kind of lean into the fact that you have more speed and you can carry it through the corners. Obviously you have to brake still and get the car slowed down, but you can keep an advantage from the time you gain down the straight, which sometimes I tend to kind of drop it, and I'm gonna drop it even worse as we go through No Name, just completely whiffing the apex, and that gap behind begins to slowly close again. He now finds himself 1.7 seconds away. Here's an outside view of me just driving directly into the dirt, and there is the difference watching Gabriel's line, and wow, much, much cleaner. He's going to be carrying more speed all of the way into Puan. Really important that we get a good run here. Sometimes if I mess up No Name, I just mess up Puan because I'm in my head, and then the self-destruction amplifies from there. Now, 1.2 seconds behind Rathal, so we've actually lost 2/10 since Lacombe, which is not very good. Actually, I think we've lost more than that. We've lost about 3/10 since Lacombe. Thankfully, I was pretty confident through corners 14 and 15, which is this corner I'm in right now and the corner I'm coming up to, or corners 15 and 16, which some track maps call them. I don't know what's correct. 15, 16, 14, 15. I see it different just about every time that I see it on a track map, but we get a decent run through there. However, decent is not going to be good enough because Gabriel is still making time up to us. We have that slipstream advantage though, so all we need to do is kind of keep this. If we could keep this exact gap, we should be fine because we'll be pulled along the Kimmel Straight and all of the way to the chicane that we're running into right now. And then Gabriel doesn't really have, I mean, he just has to put in absolute heaters. We just have to not make a mistake. So he has to do more than us, honestly, because we don't have to do anything. He has to do something. Final lap rolls around. We have managed to sit perfectly in that little gap. He has made a lot of time up to us. His last lap was a 19.5, which at this point was the fastest lap of the race. But with only a few corners left to go, I figure, that's a pretty big gap. And I make a huge mistake here, which is letting my guard down. And this is something that I need, like, whenever I hear myself in my head, I'm driving and I tell myself, oh, we've done it, we've done enough, I begin to lack on my corners. I begin to brake a little bit earlier, get on throttle a little bit later, just be extra safe, and try and just drive it home, which, it's not a good thing to do, and you'll see why, especially in a situation like this. With one corner left to go, I think we have P2 on lock, but you might see in the bottom right there that this is actually lap 10, so I am celebrating, lifting off my throttle and wiggling my car, and it's not the last lap. There was one lap left, so I ended up dropping about 7-8 tenths in the second half of that lap just due to pure laziness. And that puts us in a situation on the true final lap where Gabriel is now directly behind us. Oh my, I don't know. I miscounted my laps earlier on in the race, and I think I just stuck to that number all the way through. I was so happy running up to the line there until I realized where we were. Now, it's not a great situation, but it's not really bad either. We still have a pretty big gap, but that pressure is gonna get to me. Into La Source, we have about a half a second gap to Gabriel behind, going a bit deep into the first apex, trying to make up for it in the second apex, and dart quickly to that next one. Gabriel thankfully has a little bit of a moment here, slight not overcorrection, but a correction that does kind of throw him into the dirt and bring him back to half a second behind us. However, into No Name, historically, the worst corner for me. The line looks good, but the speed wasn't great. Definitely overslowed. He's 0.4 seconds behind through Puan. I need a good run, and already I can tell you I overslowed. I got on throttle too early, basically took too early of an apex, and he's gonna gain some more time through there. At this point, I realized it's gonna be a battle tooth and nail, and I kind of go full defense mode. He's on our ass, and this defense mode, there's not that much left. Really, the only opportunity that he has is the chicane, that final chicane. So I know that all I really need to do is hold the inside and basically not allow him to go around the outside, which is definitely possible through that final chicane. You go deep and then you cut and dart to that second apex. So my goal is to hold the inside after Blanchimont. He's going to have a huge run. He's in the perfect place for slip. And as we approach Blanchimont, I think I may even just take an off track here to try and keep my speed up. Maybe I did. It was pretty close there. On the inside, I'm not letting anything go. However, he does make a really good dive there. I thought that there was space. Oh, I thought he went a little bit too deep. Like, looking at it from the outside, he definitely gets it done, I suppose. I just didn't think he had the angle to, like, dart to that apex. I felt like he would kill me even if I went deep if he did that. So I thought he was going to back out, but looking at it from an outside perspective, there was space there. So, he did well to go around the outside, and I kind of just, I mean, I turned in too early. I realistically should have just played that, driving deeper myself and look for a better run up to the line. P3, big mistakes, and oh god, watching that last lap was just suffering for me. Now, we still ended up gaining iRating, which is great. Safety rating. Does anybody fucking care about safety rating? Also, I need to work on keeping the car on track. I mean, I swear to God, I'm going off on Blanchimont every single time, basically, except for, I guess, the times that you actually saw, because I've edited out where I went deep. I don't know. I usually go deep through there, so I wanted to do some practice. This is quali practice. We only had enough time for one quali run before the next race started, so we literally just got out of that last race. I did one lap already. It was a 19.4, which is a really good lap, but I felt like I could go a bit faster, and I also felt like other people were going to be doing times similar to that. So my goal was like 19.3. I would have been pretty happy with 19.3. In my last lap, I said 19.4, but it was a 19.499, so basically a 19.5. Really, really solid run through Lacombe there. We hooked up, I mean, start to end, that was just about as clean as I have ever done it. Probably overslowing through Rivage here. I think you can carry more speed, go deeper, get the car turned quicker, but it is what it is. No Name. My brain just does not like that corner. It hates that corner. Braking at that line that we were passing, trying to brake later into the chicane and just gain more time on entry and still get a decent exit, but basically compromising my exit a little bit for that the run in. 19.22, which was a really strong lap, and race 2 rolls around with that newfound practice and pace. We end up putting it on pole with a 19.4, right behind us 19.5, and then behind him 19.7. So it's gonna probably be a little train again at the front, most likely a train closer than that last race, because I don't know if I can run consistent 19s with no slip. So we have the lead. They're fighting behind, which is pretty fantastic. Into turn 1, similar start to last time. They're just about 3 wide, end up slotting in. And as that lead car, I think you're always hoping for somebody to go too wide. These people know that. They're gonna back out and end up forming a nice little line, at least for the cars, the 3 cars behind us. Up Eau Rouge and Radillon for the first time. I think car number 2 turned in too early, and it kind of compromises his run all of the way up the hill. He falls back about a 10th to us, which isn't going to matter in the long run, of course, because of slipstream, but for this specific lap, it's going to be pretty important, because had he not lost that 10th, I think he would have had the opportunity to make a dive there. But we remain in the lead of the race as we go through Lacombe, and in stark contrast to last race, nobody is going to die. There was even some too wide happening, and nobody died, so really nice to see that all of the way back to, I think this is like P10 or P11. Somebody does end up driving off at the next corner, but nobody dies through Lacombe. Great stuff from everyone. I'm deep into Rivage. Car number 2 just about finds space, which would put him on the outside for No Name, not somewhere you want to be, and he's going to end up backing out. I do have to take a really narrow line, though, because of that, which kind of kills my run towards P1, so he has an opportunity to send it too wide into P1. Also, not a super smart thing to do. Ends up pushing us instead, which is fantastic. Bit of a half-assed dive from Eduardo behind, or I shouldn't say half-assed dive. I think he was just moving to the inside, perhaps to see, you don't know. I don't think he was really looking for that position. Now, into corners 12, 13, 14, and 15, I really just want to try and not make any mistakes, because as the leader, making a mistake just kind of bunches everybody up, and it's not good for anyone. I mean, you can strategically bunch people up to try and give yourself space, but in this case, I'm just trying to carry as much speed as possible through this whole sector of the track, as opposed to last lap or last race where I was very slow through there. Now, into the chicane, somebody went extremely deep behind us. We're just going to act like that didn't happen, and we have a fairly good run. We're still in the lead as we go into lap number 2. 2 tenths behind us, 3 tenths, so he's in a perfect position to look for an overtake at the end of the Kimmel Straight. If we make any little mistake, it should be a very easy move for him, but he's actually going to make a mistake out of La Source. He looks like he slides his tires a bit, and we find ourselves with about a 6/10 gap now. The car behind can't really look up the inside here, so he's going to push and kind of help this guy catch up to me, as staying attached to the leader is pretty important, I would say, as any of these cars. That's their end goal, right? They don't want to fight for P2. They don't want to fight for P3. They want to fight for the lead of the race. And never mind, I was wrong. They do want to fight for P3. Car number 4 wants to fight for P3. However, car number 1 is not going to give this up, and he finds that apex beautifully, immediately gets on throttle, pushes deep, but it does give him track position, and 4 has to back out there. Smart decision. Even that little bit of fighting from them has dropped them off about 5 or 6 tenths from Philip. So it just shows how quickly you can lose time when you're fighting to people who are just basically hot lapping, which is me and Vincent, excuse me, at this point. Vincent is that car in P2. Now into 12, 13, 14, and 15. Little bit of gravel on the track. Really just same thing as last lap. Not trying to back anybody up, just trying to run clean laps, trying to pull away from Vincent, which I knew would be fairly difficult. He's a 7K driver, and the car behind him is just about 8K, so they should have some really good pace. And more than that, I think when you have iRating that's that high, excuse me, I think what that means more is that you just don't make as many mistakes. I think making mistakes is kind of the biggest factor of, bad finishes, bad races. Less mistakes and a little less pace, I'd say, is a lot better than more pace but making more mistakes. Now, through the chicane, bit deep through that first apex, and that's going to put Vincent right on my ass as we cross on to lap number 3. And I am going to do something that throws a wrench in the situation that we're in right now, because we're in a really good situation. We went deep, and now we are in a really bad situation. That situation is that Vincent is right behind us. This will very easily be a move done for him at the end of the Kimmel if he wants it, but more than that, it allows the cars behind Vincent to get back into this fight. Perhaps it would have even been smart of me to, I don't know. I mean, really all I needed to do there was not make that mistake. You can see P3 now catching up, and Vincent is going to take this opportunity to push me, actually. So I move to the outside thinking, okay, he's going to work with me, and he actually does. He doesn't go for the move. So we go through Lacombe in this order, and it seems like P4 is beginning to fall off, so it may turn into a battle of 3 at the front. At the end of lap 4, similar distance from everybody, and we've kind of just been running in the same position. Vincent has been working together with us thus far, attempting to gain our trust, but I know that gaining the trust of somebody is a tactic to break that trust, backstab them later, so I'm aware of that. On to lap number 5. Vincent, 3 tenths behind us still. That perfect place to get that slipstream and that pass onto the Kimmel, as I have said so many times this video. I mean, there's only so much to talk about on Spa. It's basically the Kimmel and the chicane. All the rest of it, you're generally kind of just hot lapping. Now, Vincent does end up lifting there as he is in the slip, so he has a lot of overspeed and kind of sets himself up perfectly to attempt this move. And he could be looking for a push here, tries the dummy, but I am unwavering on the inside. I'm not going to let that happen. Maintaining a super defensive line, opening it up into the braking zone, and making my car as fat as possible, taking up the track. Look at the back of that thing. That is a fucking thick-ass sandwich right there. I prefer more peanut butter on my sandwiches than most, I would say. Peanut butter to jelly ratio for me is about 1.75 to 1. The back of that car doesn't accurately display that. That shows a pretty 1-to-1 ratio, but I don't think that that's enough peanut butter. Up Eau Rouge on lap number 6. The order has remained the same, and I would say all four, the top 4 are all in this fight for the lead. P5 isn't too far behind either. Vincent trying it around the outside. I'm holding the defensive line, and he has a ton of overspeed. I'm trying to get as close as possible to him on the entry to Lacombe. Hugging tight. Around the first apex, we're good. Through the second apex, very tight again. A little bit of contact sends me into the dirt, and I'm gonna fucking... I'll show you my cockpit view of this. You can see him on the left side there. I'm getting as close as possible, eating that on the right side, trying to open up this next corner for myself and get sent into the dirt. Managed to save the car, but it's going to throw everything off here as we're now side by side with car number 1, but it looks like we're still going to have the inside for Rivage. We move to the inside, all the way to the inside to defend, and so does the car ahead, who is the new leader, as he hugs the inside very tightly. Car number 1 looking to go around the outside and take P1 from car number 2. This battle up ahead has slowed me down to the point to where Lucas, car number 6, is going around what it will be the inside for No Name. I have a nose ahead though, so I'm just just able to hold that side by side. I go off track, that's okay. Eduardo behind manages to slot in behind, actually pushes me and finds himself now side by side with car number 6 into P1, and we're able to slide ahead of him right on the entry, maintaining P3, losing quite a bit of time to P2, about half of a second, and not to mention we did just lose 2 positions through that whole fiasco, but we're alive. The cars behind are side by side through 12, 13, and 14, and that's gonna end in tears for car number 6 mainly, who is slid off to the side, manages to keep it facing the right direction and rejoin the track. So really the only thing that happened there, I think, is that I fell down 2 positions at the end of that. Now, the situation is much different past that, of course. P4 is now over a second behind us, so we're still attached to the cars ahead, thank God. They're attached to each other. They could end up fighting, they could end up pushing, I'm not quite sure, but I'm in a situation where I'm definitely still within a shout of the lead. I know that I have the pace to keep up with these guys, to lead the race for some amount of time at least, but it's going to rely on a bit of racecraft from here on out, as we are no longer just defending. Now, on to lap number 9. Not much has changed other than the fact that Eduardo behind has fallen off quite a bit. We did get a pretty terrible run through corner number 12 there, missing the apex, which is going to lose us a bit of time, about a 10th or 2. Nothing dramatic, as we are still very heavily within slip. And through 15, it's not great. It's not very great. Into the dirt, overcorrecting, and that gap is going to open up a bit more, so we lose another 2/10 there, I would say. Still in slipstream, still, 10, 11... Wait, laps 10, 11, let me make sure, not make the same mistake as last race. 2 laps left to go, so we are heading onto the penultimate lap. I need some other way, dude. My brain just does not work very well with counting laps for some reason. The car in P2, heading through the source. I'm really hoping that they end up fighting. That gap that I have kind of created between myself and P2 may give him the confidence to fight as well. That's the benefit sometimes of dropping off of the car ahead of you. It allows them to not risk losing that position immediately, which makes them make a move, and then, that risk of losing a position is still there. However, in this instance, car number 1 making the executive decision to lift off of the throttle extremely early and give up that position. However, the car who's now in P1 still has to take a very narrow entry, and the car who's now in P2 is kind of limited to the speed of P1. So I gained a bit of time, not as much as I would have gained if they were to have fought, but that could have gone clean. That switch could have definitely gone cleaner for them still through Rivage. Both of them going a little bit deep there into No Name. Please let me. Fuck, dude, I hate that corner. I'm so bad at it. So we fall off again, and that gap kind of opens up to where, or almost to where it was, half a second now behind them, and through Puan, it's just going to get worse. It's to the point now, like, I remember as I was driving this, I was thinking it's done. It's done. It's done at this point. I'm P3 and that's it. I mean, there's still a lot of opportunity, but making 2 mistakes like that, as I mentioned earlier, I make a mistake in No Name and it carries over somehow into Puan. It's more of a mental diff, a brain diff than anything else. But I will be fighting to kind of claw my way back into this fight with only 1 lap left to go and almost a 10th or almost a full second off, well, a second off the leader, 7/10ths off of the car in P2. But he is in a position to make a dive into the chicane. If I were him, I would just wait until the end of the Kimmel, though. I think that is by far the easiest move to make. And if he does make a move into the chicane, the car that he overtakes could just try and retake that position into the Kimmel. So he's going to end up sitting behind. You can see he took a slightly narrow line there as well, and I think it does throw the car off ahead briefly. They are completely offline, a slide from the leader, and they almost end up side by side. We gain a lot of time as we head onto the final lap. We are right back in this. Through La Source, we don't have to do much. I think we can go slightly deep here and look for a really good exit, and we should be able to catch up. I assume there's going to be a battle happening. I assume I'll probably be in it 3/10ths behind. However, he is 3/10ths behind the leader as well, so he should have a lot more overspeed than the leader, and I should have relatively the same as him. I'm really going to be looking to fight for P2, maybe slide up the inside if they are to go side by side and follow one of the cars through. It just comes down to following the right car through. It looks like car number 2 is going to defend the inside. He's not letting this position go, taking a defensive line into Lacombe. The space just about looked like it opened up, but fuck, dude. Oh, God. I'm sorry you guys have to watch this. Like, the space was definitely there, but car number one breaks a little bit early to try and cut back, and I just take way too much speed into there, like way too much speed. At the end of the day, that is 100% on me. There was plenty of space on the inside there for me. And here comes everybody else going through. We end up rejoining the track ahead of somebody, at least. It could have been, I mean, if we were to be a bit slower there, we could have lost another position, but it's still P7, so we're down like 4 positions from where we just were moments ago, and we kind of spoiled that battle as well for those top 2, as now the car in P2 doesn't really have an opportunity to make that move back. Now, we will end up crossing the line in this position. I didn't really want to try anything crazy after that. P7 for us. Oh, man, and you can see how frustrated I was at the time as I just immediately park it and leave the session. It was just not my day. Another sad result, another sad final lap, and we find ourselves still gaining iRating, which is great, and actually not losing that much safety rating. Again, similar thing. I think we had 2 or 3 valid laps, so maybe that's an improvement. Not really. In the grand scheme of things, you should be getting much more than that. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, check the link in the description for the playlist with all sorts of crazy races, or the video on your screen, and subscribe.